John Macdonald again from ProScot, looking at our Motorcycle Roadcraft series. Now this is PS26 we're on. I'm going to be doing road-based machine control as the next set of videos we're going to be looking at, the actual machine control out on the roads. But before we can do that, we need to explain in a bit more detail and build on what was explained previously, especially such things as trail braking, for example, and what's really happening out on the road with your machine control. Now, as you know, I've got a background in motorcycle racing, so one of the easiest ways for me to explain machine control is to show the comparison between road riding and track riding and racing, and that will give you a better idea of how the machine control actually works and what we're actually doing. So let's have a look at that now. Now, I make no bones here, this is not a Trackcraft course that I'm doing here. I plan to do that separately. This is Roadcraft, so please forgive me if I'm not going into too much detail. So anyone that's a track day person that feels I'm missing some stuff out, this is still very much road based. Okay, what you'll see I've done here, if you want to come in a bit closer, Lou, I've drawn a road here to the right, and I've also drawn a track here to the right, and I'm going to talk about the comparisons between the two. The first thing is here, notice it's a right hand bend in both cases, and we've got the motorcycle road rider positioning towards the near side, and we explained why, for improved vision. Once the rider gets far enough into the bend and can see the exit, the rider starts to reposition back to where is appropriate, depending on where the next bend goes. In this case I've shown an extension with the squiggles, a left hand bend, and the rider's pulling back towards, from near side to offside to position themselves. Now, let's have a look here at what the track person's doing. Again, they are also approaching on the near side as far to the left as possible, and if you think about the bike racers, you'll see them as they come into right hand bends. They're not in the middle of the track, they're well over to the left hand side to make the track as wide as they possibly can. Now, I've shown an apex point round here. This apex point on a racetrack will depend upon the position of the next bend. If, for example, it's a very tight left hand bend immediately after this bend, then the racer would look to apex, which means effectively come closer to the edge, inside edge or the offside edge of the track, is far round the corner, further round the corner. If it was what we call just a standard sort of middle corner going down to a straight, you'd find that that apex might be slightly further round, but not as far as this. And in some cases the apex might just be bang slap in the middle. So the apex is going to depend for a racer on what position gives them the fastest line through it. So they're positioning for speed through the corner. This rider's positioning for safety and vision. So safety and vision here, speed here. And the racer is setting up on the right hand side here because the next bend's a left, and the racer wants to make sure, the track day rider wants to make sure the exit of this bend is forming the entrance, best entrance to the next. In other words, we're series bend linking. We're making sure that one bend, exit off, forms entrance to the next. And so we get that flow on the racetrack. And here Valentino Rossi and all other Italians talk about the rhythm, which means the flow that they are in. And they also, which I'm going to explain in a moment, use reference points throughout the track. That's why their track times are so consistent. I'm going to talk a little bit about more of that as well. So I'm showing the comparison between the two here, the road riding and the track riding. Alright, so near side position, and then starting to move in, and there's an apex point, and then the rider then heading off in whatever direction is next appropriate. So there's some of the summers. Now, the racer gets their position from what is effectively the best racing line for their style of motorcycle, and they learn that from going out walking the track, observing other riders, and just basically through practice and looking at their times and find out what works and what doesn't work. The road rider is working out their line through the corners based on the information that they're collecting, and we went through all that before. Remember, man-made natural features, road signs, road markings, road surface, camber, slope, elevation, etc, the amount of vision that they have. So they're positioning not only to let others see them and for them to see others, but position for safety is the overriding factor, and they're processing all that information to determine the most appropriate position on the road. The racer is also processing information, but different types of information. Instead of road signs, they're looking, for example, at the marshals holding up the flags, letting them know if it's green, all systems go. The information they're looking at in man-made natural features, they've already walked around the track, they've already looked at camber, slope, elevation changes, etc. They already know what the surface is like. It's not changing unless, of course, it starts raining. Whereas here, we don't know what's around the corner. It could be loose grit gravel, it could be some sort of hazard. Whereas on the track here, we've got the marshals with their green flags out, letting us know the road surface is okay, there's no oil, and of course if there's oil goes down, then we get things like yellow and red stripy flags held up to let them know. In other words, the racer or the track day rider has a lot more control over the variables. Things like the road surface, they understand, and if there's any hazards, somebody's just fell off the motorbike, slid into the middle of the track, they're going to get some sort of warning. And of course, if it's really bad, then we get the red flag out. Here, there could be a person lying on the motorbike right in the middle of the road, but there ain't nobody showing a red flag for you. So there's big differences as well. Going back here again then, let's go back, and I'm going to talk about these reference points in a moment. Let's look at how the road rider approaches a corner. In some cases, the rider will use what we call acceleration sense. That is, the rider will simply close the throttle, allow the engine braking to slow the motorcycle down, and let's say it's 40 miles per hour is the speed that the rider wants to enter that corner at. So the rider enters 40 and then goes on to what we call maintenance throttle, maintains the speed through at that speed until the vision begins to open up, the offside and near side separate, and the rider, as they begin more upright, begins to accelerate off the corner. Now that's what we call acceleration sense. Of course, we can make it more effective by downshifting through the gears a little bit earlier and having more engine braking, and this means that we can maintain the speed on the straight for longer, and by selecting lower gears we get more engine braking, and therefore we can maintain the speed on the straight for longer. Now let's suppose the rider wanted to be a little bit quicker through corners. Well, one of the best ways to be quicker through corners and through sets of bends is not to do it actually in the bend, it's actually to do it on the straights. And let me show you how I make up a lot of my time, not by taking chances in the corner, but actually by riding safer on the straights. Let me show you what I do. Instead of closing my throttle now and just downshifting my gears, or using 6th gear and allowing the bike to lazily slow down and run through here and then chug on the way out, I will actually close my throttle, especially if I'm feeling in a more sportier kind of mood. I'll close my throttle, I'll use my brakes in an effective and efficient way, and we explained that earlier how to use the brakes, and effectively I will shorten down that distance to get to 40 miles per hour in a much shorter distance. Now I'm still going to the bend at the same speed. The difference is, instead of closing my throttle way back here, I close my throttle closer to here and apply my brakes. And you'll notice shorter distance now to bring that speed back down again. Now what that means is I was able to maintain the speed on the straight for longer, so when the person closed the throttle and I've still got my throttle open, I've already pulled a good few bike lengths and we still go into the corner at the same speed. So I've safely made up time. Let's suppose we go around the corner here. I see a lot of riders going around the corner, leaning, and they wait until the bike's fully upright, back up onto the centre of the tyre, the fat part of the tyre, right in the middle, bike fully upright, and that's at the point then when they think about opening the throttle back up again. Well, by that time the bike's well out the corner, and all you end up doing really is tearing the centre out of the tyre, so you end up with loads of tread on the sides that's never ever been used, and you've got the centre of the tyre effectively ripped out. Now, what I tend to do though is, as I go around the corner, and I'll just, maybe, if you look at me, Louise, it's probably a better way to explain it. As my bike's leaned over, I've just got maintenance throttle at this point. I've got my bike maintained. Now, as the bike though becomes more upright, I begin to start bringing my throttle in a little bit. And as it becomes more upright, more throttle, and on that last sort of 10 degrees, I really start to bring the throttle on. So in other words, how much throttle I can give off the corner is directly proportional to the amount of lean angle I've got. When I'm at my lean angle, I want to get maximum grip for the front tyre and the rear tyre, so I've just got maintenance throttle. I'm not braking, I'm not accelerating, maintenance, balancing the bike out, maximum grip. As that bike starts to come upright, I realise now I need less grip for the lean angle, so that means I've got more for acceleration. So I begin to accelerate as I come more upright. And my throttle is effectively connected to my lean angle. So as it starts to come up, I start bringing it on, and then the last bit, on she goes. Now, if I've done that on the way out the corner, my bike just seems to jump out the corner and shoots away. And I've got a video later where I'll show I make a mistake on a track and a rider comes past me just with that very thing, got on the throttle a lot better than me and carried the speed down the straight. So the same rules apply to when you're going into a corner. Let's look, the road rider slowed down to 40 and then maintained the 40 round. Let's look for what a racer does. Now please, these figures are just made up, just to give you an idea. It's not to scale, so don't hang me for this one. Let's suppose the racers come along at 100, obviously I haven't to show 60 miles per hour here for the road for obvious reasons, but 100 miles per hour here, I'm shown here on the racetrack. That could be more, could be 120, 130, that might be slower, but 100 miles per hour. The racer comes along, he wants to go in here, start turning in at 75 miles per hour. But what he does, or what she does, she, keeps the throttle open for as long as they possibly can, and they make that braking distance to get from the 100 miles per hour down to 75 as short a distance as they possibly can. So they're using a lot of brake pressure here. And a lot of the top MotoGP riders, it's incredible the amount of brake pressure that these people have on their bikes to really shorten that distance down so they can make the straights as long as they possibly can. And that's what they're trying to do, straights as long as they can. Now, of course, when they come along here, go on those brakes at 100 miles per hour, right down to 75, they're actually not so much interested in the speed here, although they are. They're really interested in the speed in the middle of the corner. And they know from experience, that's why they're so consistent, what that speed is going to be. And it's unbelievable when you think that some of the top MotoGP riders, after the first lap, their second lap to the end lap could maybe be separated by 0.3, 0.4. Lorenzo's a perfect example of that. Mr. Consistency himself could just go lap after lap after lap. But all the top MotoGP guys can really do it. Half a second variation. Now, when you're that consistent, think how consistent you need to be on the track to be able to do that. Their speeds here are absolutely bang on. They're not 5 miles per hour out either side. It's maybe half a mile an hour out at most. So unbelievable consistency. Now what they'll do is go from 75 here down to 60. They're still scrubbing off speed. So how are they doing that? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about trail braking in a moment and explain what's happening. So what the racer's doing different from the road rider, the racer's faster. The racer's carrying the speed on for longer, wants to make the straight as long as they possibly can. So they're on the throttle for much longer. And it's full throttle, by the way, not half throttle, not 3/4. That throttle is pulled back to the stops. Basically maximum power down the straight. Then they want to get to the shortest possible distance. Noise in the background, my hot tub just decided to switch on. The shortest possible distance that they can shorten this speed down in, and then trail brake into the corner here. So there's your track ride. Now, let's look at some of these reference points. On the track, the racer has consistent markers. Now, when I would walk around the track, I'd look for little cracks in the tarmac, little patches, little marks at the side of the track, reference points that let me know where I am on that track. I'd look for a started braking marker, for example, where I'm going to start my braking point, and that could be a little, as I say, patch on the tarmac, something like that. It lets me know where I'm going to start braking, some sort of a reference point. And if it's too early, then I'll start making it a bit later, but I get a consistent start of braking marker. I'm looking for an end of braking marker, which is really at the point where I'm starting to ease off pressure as I'm starting to go into the corner. It's also tied in with what we call the turn-in point, the point at which I'm going to start turning into the corner. Now, the road rider also has an end of brake marker that they'll brake, and now we're taught in L-test, we're taught to release our brakes before we start to lean. In other words, don't brake and lean at the same time. We're told to give the maximum amount of grip purely to leaning, and the best way to do that is not to accelerate until you're fully upright, and not to brake when you're fully upright, and as soon as you start to lean, let go of the brake and wait till you're fully upright before you accelerate. Well, as I said to you, that's a fairly slow way to go through a set of bends. If you can trail brake on the way in, do a bit of trail braking on the way in, and actually begin to accelerate on the way out as you become more upright, you will make up a lot of time through the bends. Let's go back to the track here again. Start of braking, we've already mentioned. The end of braking, which is already turned in with the turn-in point, the point at which the rider's going to start turning in. We've got the apex point, this point here. And we've also got the exit point. That's the point where you get to the apex, so you're waiting for it, you see the exit point. That could be lots of different things. Cartagena, for example, on one of the corners, I'll wait till I can see a palm tree. As soon as I can see the palm tree, I know it's fire the trigger. Onto the start-finish straight at Cartagena, for example, on the last corner, takes you on to start-finish. I'll wait till I see the boards further up, and there's a particular letter on the board that I'll wait till I can see, and I know that's when I get on the throttle. If I go on the throttle too early, my bike just runs wide, it stays on the side of the tyre. Yes, I got on the throttle first, but I didn't get on full power first, and that's important. I've got to wait. It's the person that really gets on full throttle first on a track is the one that's going to carry the speed down the straight. So, I look for my exit point. So, on a track then, we're looking for these points. These are dots that we're joining in a consistent way, lap after lap after lap. And then we make fine adjustment on those points. Okay, let's look at the left here. Now, on a left-hand bend, again, the road rider is over towards the right-hand side, if this is going to give them view through the bend. Approach the offside. Of course, if it's safe, if we've got a car coming towards us, we're really taught we're moving back to a more central position, or where it's appropriate, and then moving back again. So this wide line on the way in. Now, if it's a road and there's no trees and bushes here, I don't even need to do that. I can maybe just take more of a central sort of position, and coming inside and then back out again. I'm only out here to the right because I want to maximise my view through the bend. But as an ex-racer and road rider, I know now that by taking a wider line on the way in, I've effectively reduced the curvature, radius or arc of the bend, and it allows me to carry a little bit more speed through without having to put as much lean angle in. So for me, I prefer the wider line. So even if I didn't need to be out there for the vision, I would still be out there. So the road rider's out as close to the centre line as is safe to do so. Up, starts staying out here. They're not getting sucked in yet, they're staying out. Remember we said before, wait till the offside near side separate, limit point separates, limit point moves away. So remember we said there's a point you're slowing, point you're maintaining, then the offside near side separate, the vision moves away quicker, you can see where the next point's going. That's when you start moving it back to wherever's the next relevant position, depending on whether it's a right or a left. Now in this case we're showing a right, so the rider pulls back towards the near side. Let's look at what the track day person does. Well, for starters, the track day person uses the whole width, or the racer uses the whole width. Now we can't do that as road riders for obvious reasons, we've got people coming another way. But notice they're on wider. So by making the track wider, you're effectively opening the track up and you can increase speeds and carry more speed through the corner. Now, depends where the apex point is going to be. The rider will go deeper into the corner the further round the apex is. If it's a mid-section apex point that's required, then the rider's going to start coming in earlier. So it really depends on the racing line. In other words, they've got total flexibility to move about depending on what's the optimum for them for speed. Whereas the road rider is positions determined by vision and safety, remember, don't forget. Now, if we pop back up here again, you can now see the difference between on here, it's not quite as obvious, but the road rider is restricted to this left-hand lane, not the right. As you notice, the track day rider, the person on track, the racer, has got effectively the whole road from the black line to the black line, and everything in between is a free-for-all. You can use it all. On the road though, we know that we're more restricted. There are times admittedly when you can go across a white line, straight line and bends if it's safe to do so, nobody behind overtaking, nobody in front, you get the idea. So there's a big difference on positioning. This is why you can't take the classic racing line onto the road if it means taking you on the wrong side of the road. You can't go flying around bends if you can't stop within the distance you can see to be clear, because there ain't a marshal standing there with a green flag telling you it's all systems go. You don't know what kind of hazards around the corner. You can't push brake pressures to the limit because you've not got that consistency. You need to build in the what if. And you don't really know what the road surface is like. When the racers go round and round and round, they've got great grippy tyres, they're warmed up, the brakes are warmed up, they know what the surface is like. I know there's certain tracks, for example, Knock Hill's a classic example of this, where in the wet there was certain corners I could brake harder on an approach than others because I knew there was different grip levels and different camber and different slope. You've seen roads for the first time. You can't push those sort of limits that you can push on the road. Alright, so there you go. Apologies for cutting the video like that. It was getting a bit too long. We're going to do PS27 in the next video where we'll look at trail braking and tyre grip trade-off.